Welcome to the series about DevOps. This is where we learn how to host a Next.js app on a DigitalOcean droplet and set up CI/CD automation, which is continuous integration and continuous development. Basically, you should be able to code locally, push that code to GitHub, and just by running a few scripts, you should be able to deploy that app in your DigitalOcean droplet in a few minutes. This is part one of a two-part series. In this video, I will show how to deploy a Next.js app using a script and then using another script to set up the domain and SSL for the app. Then we'll walk through two detailed diagrams showing what happened step by step. And now let's get started. All right, so this is a simple Next.js e-commerce application. As you can see here, let's go to the shop again, add this, and then go to checkout. So this is pretty much a simple one, but the application is not the focus here. As you can see, if you look here, it's localhost 4000, right? But this is a deployed copy in our DigitalOcean staging box. This is on cyberizedev.com 4000 port, right? And here you see we're currently running the v2 and v3 here, and let's say this is a bug that needed to be fixed, right? So we come back here, we fixed it, v4 match, and this is also an upgrade. And the way we did it in locally, here I just made these changes here and pushed this code to the GitHub. That's it. So from my front end part, from the local system part is done. Now let's go back to the DigitalOcean droplet. It's as you can see here, this CyberShop Next is currently running. This is the version 2 here, or 2/3. All right, so at this point, let's go inside a little bit, clear the screen, and try to see our folder structure. All right, so here you can see this is the application folder, and this has the backup folder, logs folder, sh, and that's where my Python and all the other bash scripts are. And then this is the GitHub folder that we're going to be cloning in, and this is where the main application is. And this is exactly where, and I'm calling it app root, by the way. And here I am, let's say lsla. Here also I put my .env.local. All right, so let's now clear the screen, go under sh, and let's see what we have here. We have a backup.py, deploy.py, start, stop, and test. So anyway, so here, this video I am going to divide in three parts. First, I'm just going to go through the functionality, show you how the process works. Then we're going to go into a diagram, and I'll show you step by step what exactly happening. And then I'm going to explain all these scripts, especially this deploy one, step by step. And after this process is done, then we're going to move to the next step, which is the SSL and the domain setup, right? So let's focus on deploy. All right. Let's start that. It's a Python script. So initially, it's just going to ask you, do you have your .env.local ready? So this will remind the admin to make sure that this file is ready to go. And this is also I'm just connected to my DigitalOcean droplet via SSH, and I'm using VS Code, this guy right here, remote SSH plugin, to go ahead and connect to the backend, and that way I can just take control over my entire staging setup. So anyway, so this is the file, this is the folder structure, this is the previous GitHub code repo that I pulled in. And at this point, admin will make sure that this is in the right place. So I'll go back and say, yes, it is done and ready. And now it's going to go ahead and read this app.conf file from here. from here. This is a static file with all the necessary variables in. So it's going to go ahead and read them. Some of them it will read, and some of them it will just create using these variables, the Python script. And we'll see all the details when we go walk through the code. Now, this is another position where the script wants the admin to verify whether all the variables are correct, environment variables, etc. Right? If not, you can always go here and fix it, come back, and then go to the next one. So next one is, it's actually asking if the configuration is correct. So let's say it is. I'm gonna say Y. All right, so it's finished the first part successfully and written to a Next.js deploy log under the logs folder. And now it is asking me whether to check on the previous process, whether to shut down or not. So let's go and say yes, we don't need this running at the moment, because a running process might hamper with backup process, this, that, the other. So we're gonna have a clean start. We're just gonna say yes, and it went ahead and removed our other process on PM2, which is CyberEdge Shop Next 4000. So let's go back. This guy right here used to be running, but now if we run again, we see that disappeared, right? So the script took care of it so that we can have a fresh start. And now we're going to start the backup process. Backup means, whatever that previously there was, in case you need to roll back, we have to back it up. So let's go hit Y, and boom, it just finished backing it up, compressed it, and put it under the backup folder. And it also showed me a list. This is because that not only that I can see the current backup is in place. Also, if this grows too big, the admin can decide to delete some of them, truncate, remove, or archive something, right? So now it's asking me, it's ready to clone the repository from the GitHub. So let's say Y. All right, so immediately it actually found that one of the copies is still sitting there, the previous copy. So since we're going to do an upgrade, CI/CD, right, continuous integration and continuous development. So for that, we're going to have to replace it. And now that we have a backup, so we can easily remove and start over. Boom. So it went ahead and removed the old folder and pulled in the new one. And now we're ready to do an npm install. Let's say Y. This is where the dependencies are taken care of. Should be quick. All right, so now that we have everything in place, now it's asking me whether to move the .env.local to the app root, right? Which means now that this is the app folder and this is the app root, this is where we start the Next.js from. So now it's asking to move this inside this guy. So once again, we're going to review it and then say yes. Boom. All right, so now it is in place. The script now is ready to start a build process. So let's say Y. All right, so this is where Next.js is going to build the whole application, the deployment build, and optimized and etc. So now that it's going to take a little bit of time, so we'll be right back once it's done. All right, so the build process is done, as we can see here, and right now it is ready to go ahead and start up the process, basically start this application server. So we can just go check for one last time. So this is the current, used to be the current copy, and as you can see, it's saying v2 and v3. But what we're trying to replace it with is this v4, right? So once the server comes up and these two match, that means our whole deployment process would be a success. That being said, I'm just gonna go refresh this because nothing is running. So let's see if it fails, and it does. So now let's go back, and I'm gonna go ahead and say, go ahead and start it up. Boom, there you go. CyberShop is here. Now let's go back And bada bing, bada boom. We have our v4 perfectly deployed, and this is the remote box, and this is the dev box local. Now both of them are matching, so that means we just successfully redeployed and upgraded our application from local to remote. All right, so now that we have successfully deployed our application into the DigitalOcean droplet, now let's go through this diagram to figure out what exactly happened, right? Step by step. Okay, so first we start here at the application hosting structure, right? So this is the main folder. Each app will start with a name like this. This is the naming convention I'm following. This will be the application name, and then, or the subdomain name, and then next, because it's a Next.js application, and the port number, right? So that way, just by looking at it, we know exactly what port it started, because normally PM2 does not really show us the port number. So that said, so now let's look at the structure here. We have backups in our backup folder, logs in our logs folder, and here I made a small change because since I had multiple configuration files, so I created a .conf file. So previously you probably saw it was sitting inside the root, but now I've changed this and made the script change accordingly. And this is what the scripts we're going to have. At this point, we're going to just focus on deploy.py, right? So let's get started. So admin comes up, goes under the sh folder, and starts deploy.py. All right, so now the script first asks them, or asks the admin, like whether or not the .env.local is ready, because this is a very important file for Next.js. This is where all the environment variables go. So once that is checked, the admin hits Y, and then we start the part number 1. This is where the script goes to the app.conf or configuration file, reads it up, and shows us the list like this. Right here. See, here's the confirmation for local ready. We said Y, and then it goes ahead and makes sure, lets the admin make sure all the environment variables are correct. So once that's done, well, the admin hits Y, and that's where the part 2 begins. And this is where we go ahead and check whether a previous service is already running by this name or not. Kind of like here. As you can see here, cybershop-next-4000 is currently online. So this is where our script comes up and checks for the service and stops the service and removes the service from that list. So that now it's a clean start. Once we have everything configured and a new service comes in, there will be no conflict, right? So once that is done, we hit Y and goes to the part number 3, which is the backup. So at this point, the script goes ahead and takes this GitHub repo clone, which is the actual app root. So it goes ahead and does a backup. But before it does, it goes ahead and removes the npm libraries, that folder, because that way we can have our backups size smaller, right? So once that's done, it goes ahead and zips up the folder and renames with a bk as a prefix and a timestamp as a suffix, and .tar.gz, and once done, pushes it inside this backup folder, and then it's done. So next step, we're going to go ahead and clone the new GitHub repo. Now this is at this point the script is smart enough to know whether or not the previous repo is there. When we're running it for the first time, it's just gonna go ahead and skip the backup and goes ahead and does the cloning. But what we just did, we just redeployed our new code, right? Version to version, that's gonna happen. So at this point, this script is already smart enough to ask us, hey, you know, I found a previous repo. Do you want to keep it, or I can delete it and grab a new copy from GitHub? So if we say yes, it's going to go ahead and get rid of the old one. Since we already have a backup, we can confidently do that and grab a new copy of our new version of the GitHub repo and clone it. And after the part number 4 is done, our new repo is present. Then we go to the part number 4, and meanwhile, just remember, every step of the way we're writing to the log, next-deploy log, with the timestamp, so that if anything goes wrong, somebody needs to troubleshoot, comes back, and they can see what exactly happened and when it happened, right? So now that everything is in place, we're going to go ahead and get started with part number 5, which has 3 parts. We run a npm install. I mean, these 3 parts pretty much all developers know. We install all the dependencies, and then remember the .env.local we had ready. This time we just move it to our app root right here. And once that is done, then we can just safely run npm run build and prepare our production build, right? So once that is done, only thing left for us is to starting up the server. And this is how we start the server: pm2 start service name. And this is where we verify like this service is now online. And once that happens, our application is now available at cyberizedev.com/4000 port, exactly as we have it right here. And this way we are just done with our CI/CD automation part 1, where we just successfully deployed the app. And next we should move to setting up the DNS and SSL. All right, so basically what's happening is we are currently bringing up our application right here, cyberizedev.com/4000, and it's insecurely run on HTTP. And now that we have successfully done that, our next step is going to be running the same thing on this HTTPS environment, which is secure and with a subdomain clearly, so that we don't have to use any port number like this, cybershop.cyberizedev.com. And before we move forward, let's try this in this browser. Okay, it is not working. That's exactly what we want. And our job within the rest of the video is to make sure this shows up here. All right, so we are back at the command prompt, and as you can see, our folder structure is still the same, but this time you see one extra configuration file, which is nginx-ssl.conf. And we also need to augment our app.conf this time. And under our sh directory here, we have all these scripts as before, but this time we have one extra one, nginx-ssl-setup.py, and that's the one we're going to run to set up the whole process. That being said, let's go ahead and copy this, clear the screen, and we are ready to run. Let's go. Let's see what happens. All right, at the very beginning it's asking me, hey, have you created your subdomain you're talking about, in the DigitalOcean DNS? And this I kept, because this script is built for junior admins, right? So they can come and start working, and they might forget to do that, as I have done. So I'm gonna just stop right here. I can get out, no problem. But before I do, I'm just gonna go ahead and come here. And this is the nice interface that DigitalOcean gives us to set up the DNS. So this is where we're gonna create our subdomain, cybershop. And from here, I'm gonna pick, actually, let me make it a little bit larger. Cybershop is the subdomain name, and this is what it's gonna look like. And we're gonna pick the box and create. Boom, it's created. it's right here. And as you can see, all my other subdomains are also right here. So now that this is created, so according to that, I'm going to go ahead and update my application configuration file. Let's go do that. All right, so we are back at our configuration file, and I think you notice that we're still sitting connected to our staging box or the droplet using SSH. And once again, I had to use this guy right here. So now let's go back, and this subdomain we just need to change to CyberEye Shop according to this one right here. Actually, it should be Cyber Shop. There you go, Cyber Shop. Always verify. All right. So and then you can see these few new things came, which is the SSL template path, and this is where I have a template for my Nginx configuration, and these are the actual folders in our droplet, because this is an Nginx running on Ubuntu, right? So far it looks good. So now we can just go back to running the script. All right, so we are back at our script, and now we already know that we have created our DigitalOcean subdomains. Now we're gonna just say yes, and here we go. It's presenting the entire app config file in front of us, and this is sort of like a man-in-the-middle approach. This is where your admin needs to verify everything is correct. And look, this is already a mistake because we never really exited out. It already read the configuration file before we made the change. So we're going to say, no, it's not correct. Get out. Boom. Let's start over. And this time again, let's go say why, because we know we have our subdomain created. And now look at this. Cyber Shop is our subdomain. CyberEyeDev.com, our domain, and all the other necessary configuration file location and the Nginx location, everything is showing perfectly now. And the reason all these are still coming, because this is the same config file we used for the other operation when we were doing CI/CD, right? So yes, this configuration is correct. All right, so right now it is asking us to rewrite the template that we have for Nginx configuration, which is this guy right here. As you can see, this is the hosting folder. This is the application root that we brought in from GitHub, and the rest, backups, log, etc. And right here we have our app.conf, and according to that, let's say here we're going to bring in domain, subdomain, and port, and place it right here. And this is a basic Nginx reverse lookup setup where we're going to replace our subdomain, domain, and port here, so that when our application is actually up and running here on 4000 port, but we're trying to redirect this traffic to CyberEye's shop.cybereyedev.com, so that script or that config file will go ahead and take the request and redirect to the actual application wherever it's running. And that's the function we are setting up here using this configuration file. And at this point, what our script is asking us to do, it's going to go ahead and replace those variables, right? So let's say y. Okay, and now that our config file is ready with the necessary variables, so at this point Nginx requires us to put it under etc nginx sites available, and this would be the configuration file name. So let's just say y. Okay, now let's go verify. So this is that Nginx config folder. We just do an ls, and right there is our file. So let's see the content of that file. There you go, exactly what we wanted. And at this point, the template is now replaced with the necessary values that it requires, right? Now the next step here, the next step would be to create a symbolic link and place it under the sites enable folder. Let's go back and see. Actually, let's just say y first. Okay, And now let's go see what's happening here. I mean, normally what should happen is this guy should match this guy, right? ls. So we have our cyber shop here, we have our cyber shop here, and if we do a cat here, there you go, they're a perfect match. Only difference is if I do an lsltr, you'll see these are not actual files, these are all symbolic links. All right, so now let's go back. We're almost there. Let's see, let's say why. So at this point, this is the most crucial part. This is where our Certbot is going to go ahead and place in a request to let's encrypt and generate the necessary keys and update our file right here, this guy, so that after it's all said and done, we restart our Nginx server, and everything will take place, and it will know exactly where to redirect to with the SSL certificate enabled, right? HTTPS instead of HTTP. So let's go say why. All right, so it's requesting this. All right, there you go. So look at this. So these are the certificates already placed. Certbot completed the task successfully. Okay, so now that certificate has been created and placed in the right places, so this is our time to set up the renewal timer so that these certificates are renewed automatically by our Certbot. So let's say why. All right, it is done. Now we're going to go ahead and restart the Nginx so that all this new config can take place. All right, looks like it's restarted. And here I already also placed in a live checkup process so that it will make sure programmatically that the HTTPS is in place, it's working. So let's just let it do its job. All right, so that test seemed to have failed, but don't worry. We have a final URL here, but before we check it out, let's go check here. Certbot, actually, as we know, we have our basic configuration looks like this, right? But now that we ran the Certbot successfully, so let's go check here what this file looking like. This is the cybershop.cyberize.com, and look at that. See, initially we started out with just this part, and then all these stuff got added by the Certbot when it went ahead and put in this necessary files, the full chain, PEM, private key, etc., etc. These are the certificates, and it actually says managed by Certbot, right? So now let's go. This is the moment of truth. This is what we want, and this is where we started. Local box, right? 4000. We pushed it all the way to this guy right here, which is the cyberizedev.com port 4000. And now, using the Nginx and SSL Certbot, let's see what happens. Boom, there you go. Now no more of those port 4000, no more HTTP like what we have here. Not secure, it's no longer there. So we have come full circle with our CI/CD and SSL based Next.js application deployment. Now let's go to a small diagram and go through what exactly happened. All right, so now that we have set up our domain and SSL, so let's go through this diagram to figure out what exactly happened, what the script did for us. So once again, this is our application hosting folder structure. All the necessary scripts are under sh, and this time our admin will run this guy right here, nginx-ssh-setup.py. And once run, first thing it's going to ask whether the domain or subdomain is created in our DNS. As you have noticed at the beginning of this part, we had to go to the DigitalOcean DNS setup page to create our subdomain. So without that, the whole process will fail, right? So this is a reminder for the admin to make sure that the domain is created, right? So once that is done, we just go to the step number 2, and this is where, just like on the previous script, it just reads the app.conf and displays all the environment variables for the admin to verify. So once that is verified, and meanwhile, every step of the way we're writing to the logs, and this time we're writing to Nginx-SSL log, right? Okay, so once that part is verified, part number 3, we just take our Nginx-SSL configuration file, which is basically this guy right here, and it's going to need three, in our case, three variables: subdomain, domain, and port, which it actually collects from app.conf right here. So it goes ahead and replaces all the variables, makes it ready, and dumps it in the necessary folder, which is /nginx sites available, domain.domain.com, subdomain.com. So just like here, /nginx sites available, and right underneath we have all these config files. And for our current app, it's this: cyberizeshop.cyberizedev.com. So once that is done, we go to the step number 4, and this is where the script goes ahead and creates a symbolic link to this folder: /nginx sites enabled, symbolic link to this guy right here, just as you see here. Now we are under sites enabled, and all these domain names, as you can see, these are just symbolic links to these files right here. And those are required for Nginx to know which sites are actually enabled, so it just brings them up accordingly depending on this configuration. So now that those are ready, so next step is step number 5. This is where we actually run the Certbot. The Certbot then requests to Let's Encrypt service and gets the necessary certificates and puts them in the right places. And this also makes an update to this file right here. Let's go check it out. All right, so as you can see, the cyberizeshop.cyberizedev.com, once we look at it, I mean, initially it was very simple like that, right? I mean, we just port 80, whatnot, but all these lesson 443, because SSL actually starts on 443, and also these are the locations of the certificates that it just collected from Let's Encrypt. So all this information, it just adds to our config file. You know, once it gets all the new certs, it puts it in place and updates the config. Now our config is ready to go. And after that's done, step number 6, we just go ahead and run these commands to automate the SSL certification renewal process. Whenever these certificates reach expiration date, this service is going to go ahead and makes the request to Let's Encrypt and update their status, and that way our SSL certs will remain up to date and we don't have to worry about it. So all this process is now done. Only thing we are left with is restarting the Nginx server. We use systemctl restart Nginx, and once that is bounced, now our application is available in this URL with HTTPS, basically SSL enabled, cyberizeshop.cyberizedev.com, exactly as you see right here. Before, once we deployed on this port 4000. Now, after all that's said and done, it is now running. And look at this sign here: SSL is configured successfully. With that, I finish first video of this series. On the next video, we're going to go ahead and have a detailed walkthrough of our all these scripts, basically, the deploy, Nginx, start, stop, etc. Stay tuned. If you like this, hit the like button and subscribe. Until next time, thanks for watching.